Jeff and MacKenzie Bezos are announcing they have reached an agreement in their divorce terms.
At 55, MacKenzie Scott has finally spoken out about why she left Jeff Bezos. For years, people guessed, but no one truly knew the whole story until now. To the world, they looked like the perfect couple, but behind closed doors, things were falling apart in ways no one imagined. So what happened that led to one of the most expensive divorce settlements in history? What MacKenzie just revealed is shocking, and it is not what anyone expected. This truth might just change how we see both her and Jeff forever. How MacKenzie met Jeff.
They have reached an agreement in their divorce terms. As part of the deal, MacKenzie Bezos could keep 25% of the couple's stock in Amazon.
Long before they became one of the most talked about couples in the world, MacKenzie Scott and Jeff Bezos were just two young professionals working in New York City. There was no billion or fame yet, just two people with big dreams crossing paths in the right place at the right time. It was the early 1990s, and MacKenzie had just completed her degree in English at Princeton University. She was smart, thoughtful, and deeply focused on her writing. Becoming a novelist was her biggest goal. To support herself while writing, she took a job at a hedge fund called D.E. Shaw in New York, where she met Jeff. Jeff Bezos was already doing well at the company. He was a senior vice president, known for his innovative ideas and strong work ethic. While MacKenzie was just starting, Jeff was already leading projects and thinking about the future in a big way. Here is where it gets interesting. MacKenzie later said in an interview that before she ever met Jeff, she could hear him laughing through the walls of the office. His laughter was loud, unique, and full of energy. She had not even seen his face yet, but that laughter stuck in her mind. It made her curious. When the time came for MacKenzie's job interview at D.E. Shaw, she requested to be interviewed by Jeff, and he conducted the interview. She got the job, and soon, they were working in nearby offices. They began talking more, not just about work, but about life, ideas, and dreams. MacKenzie found Jeff's brain fascinating. He was always thinking about something new, always trying to solve a problem or build something. Jeff, in turn, admired MacKenzie's mind. She was calm, intelligent, and driven, just in a quieter way. It did not take long for things to move forward. MacKenzie was the one who made the first move. She asked Jeff out to lunch. That one lunch turned into more time together, and very quickly, the two became a couple. Within just 3 months, they were engaged. In 1993, MacKenzie and Jeff got married. It was not a grand wedding, just a simple beginning to a big journey. After the wedding, they made a significant decision that later changed their lives forever. Jeff had an idea for a new kind of bookstore, one that would only exist online. It sounded risky at the time, but MacKenzie believed in him completely. So they packed up their lives and moved from New York to Seattle. Jeff worked on his business idea during the road trip, sitting in the passenger seat with his laptop. MacKenzie drove the car the whole way. That tells you everything about their partnership. She was always steady, always by his side, always helping him move forward. That online bookstore they dreamed about on the road, it became Amazon. In the early days, MacKenzie helped with everything. She handled the accounting, assisted in setting up the business, and even managed deliveries. She was not just Jeff's wife. She was part of the foundation on which Amazon was built. Back then, it was not about fame or fortune. It was just two people working hard on something they believed in. They laughed, they planned, and they pushed each other to grow. Their bond was strong, and their journey had only just begun. They started as co-workers, became partners, and built something the world had never seen before. It all started with a man who had a dream and a woman who believed in him, dedicating herself to making his dream a reality. However, it didn't remain that way forever.
Jeff, can we get some pictures together? You think that's it?
Initially, everything seemed solid. Jeff and MacKenzie had built a life together from the ground up. They were not just husband and wife. They were teammates, dreamers, and builders. They moved to Seattle with nothing but an idea and turned it into Amazon, a company that changed the world. MacKenzie was there from the start, not just cheering from the sidelines, but helping with the day-to-day grind. She managed early accounting, handled shipments, and supported Jeff in every way. However, as Amazon grew, the distance between them also increased. At first, it seemed like nothing. Jeff was working longer hours, with late nights and weekend business trips. That is how big businesses are built, right? MacKenzie stayed home, taking care of their children and keeping the family together. She stayed focused and tried to keep their life as normal as possible. However, slowly the balance started to shift. Jeff's focus was no longer just Amazon. By the late 1990s and early 2000s, he had become one of the most recognized names in business. He was now leading one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the world. In addition to Amazon, he had launched a private space company, Blue Origin, in 2000. His vision extended far beyond online shopping. He also wanted to change the future of space travel. The world saw Jeff as a genius and a visionary. MacKenzie was still mostly in the background, known as the quiet partner. However, behind closed doors, things were more complicated. The demands of Jeff's career continued to grow. Meetings, interviews, travel, and media attention became part of daily life. For someone like MacKenzie, who valued privacy and peace, that kind of constant attention was hard to manage. Even though she supported Jeff's mission, the relentless focus on work began to create a growing distance between them, a space that widened with every passing year. By the time Amazon went public in 1997, their lives had changed forever. Their wealth grew rapidly, transforming them into one of the wealthiest couples in the world. But money cannot shield love from the pressures of life. It often makes things more complicated. There were expectations, public appearances, business decisions, and the non-stop stress that came with running a company at the top. MacKenzie, who had once been involved in Amazon's early work, pulled back to focus on their family and her writing. Jeff pushed forward at full speed, chasing the future. They still had love. That part was never fake. However, the connection that once felt unbreakable now had to compete with the demands of global success. It was not just about the hours Jeff spent away from home. It was what those hours did to their bond. Missed dinners quickly turned into missed weekends. Quick conversations replaced deep talks. MacKenzie was still present and still patient, but the cracks had begun to show, and yet they stayed together. For years, they worked to hold on to what they had. They raised 4 children, shared vacations, and appeared united in the public eye. Many people admired them as a power couple, smart, successful, and loyal to one another. But the truth was not so simple. Success had brought them everything: money, fame, influence, but it had also brought pressure, isolation, and distance. Jeff was now surrounded by advisors, investors, and media attention. MacKenzie was navigating her world, quietly seeking meaning in her writing and her role as a mother. Their lives, once fully connected, began moving in different directions. Things they laughed about before turned into arguments. They barely had anything in common again, and that happens when 2 people grow in different ways. The early spark was still there somewhere, but buried under years of stress, schedule conflicts, and the weight of running a multi-billion-dollar business. Looking back, it is easy to see the signs. The long workday and the growing silence between 2 people who once dreamed so loudly together. So what finally broke the bond? What was the moment that made MacKenzie step away from it all? That part of the story is still coming, and it may be more shocking than anyone expected. Stay tuned. By now, things were no longer just quietly drifting apart. The distance between MacKenzie and Jeff had grown into something no one could ignore. Still, from the outside, everything seemed normal. They rarely spoke about their marriage in public, and when they appeared together, they looked calm, polished, even supportive. The world still saw them as a power couple, strong, wealthy, and united. Behind closed doors, the story was different. What had started as small gaps had grown into a real divide. It was not just the late nights or the endless meetings. There was something deeper going on, a shift in how they connected. MacKenzie remained the primary presence at home, raising their 4 children and pursuing her passion for writing. Gradually, something within her began to change. She was growing quieter and more guarded. Friends close to her started to notice the difference. Jeff, on the other hand, was more focused than ever on his growing empire. Amazon was no longer just an online bookstore. It was becoming one of the biggest companies in the world. At the same time, Jeff had launched his space company, Blue Origin, and was diving into new ventures. He was always thinking about the future, business, technology, space, but not necessarily family. There was less and less time for real connection. People close to them began to sense a change. Insiders noticed a cooling in their relationship. The once warm energy between them had faded. There were fewer shared smiles and fewer moments that felt truly personal. MacKenzie seemed to be holding something in, something she could not say out loud just yet. She had always supported Jeff through the hard days, the startup chaos, and the global rise of Amazon. She was always there for him, but now, she felt like she was no longer part of his world. He was surrounded by executives, press, and business plans, while MacKenzie was left alone to dwell in the silence he had created. Nonetheless, she held on. She hoped things might turn around. With time, they could reconnect. Maybe this was just another rough patch. After all, they had built so much together, a family, a company, a future. She wanted to believe that it could still work. Deep down, she knew that something had shifted. This was no longer about the company or a busy schedule. This was about something broken between them, something that could not be fixed with time or effort alone. MacKenzie was beginning to feel that the man she had married was not the same man standing beside her now. The worst part was that the reason for it all had not yet been revealed. At this point, there were rumors, several whispers in media circles, and hints in gossip columns. Stories that discussed tension in their marriage, but they could not confirm the reason for the tension, and nothing concrete ever came to light. No one dared to speak out about what was happening because they did not have the whole truth. A wrong choice of words could easily land them in a legal battle with one of the world's richest and most powerful couples. Only MacKenzie knew the full truth, and she was carrying it silently. It was a heavy truth, one that she knew would change everything if it were ever to become public. This was not just about drifting apart or growing differences. It was something more personal, something more painful, and something that would change everything she thought she knew about her husband. She had not told anyone yet, but she had begun to prepare herself for what was coming. Quietly, she started making plans. Not for divorce, not yet, but for the life she might need to build on her own. She was no longer just holding on. She was starting to let go in small, quiet steps. The public still thought everything was fine. They had no idea what was happening. MacKenzie knew that the turning point had come. The damage was done, and now it was only a matter of time before the rest of the world would find out about the truth she was holding in. It was going to come out. When it did, everything would change. Exposed at last. Now, at 55 years old, MacKenzie Scott finally told us her side of the story in her own words. She told her story in her books and in interviews about how the divorce affected her, and also about the fact that Jeff was unfaithful to her during the marriage, and the news shocked the entire world. By January 2019, the huge secret that Jeff Bezos, the man behind Amazon, was having an affair was no longer a secret, and it was a story that dominated the internet, the news, and dinner table conversations worldwide. Not because cheating was rare, but because it was Jeff Bezos himself, one of the wealthiest men alive. The man people watched build a company from nothing. A man with a supportive wife who built it all from scratch with him. 4 children, and a life that had always seemed so solid. The shock wasn't just about the affair. It was about what people thought they knew. For over 25 years, Jeff had been married to MacKenzie Scott. She was his partner from the very beginning. When Amazon was just an idea, MacKenzie was there, driving Jeff to meetings, handling the family's early finances, and raising their kids. They seemed like a real team, one of those rare couples who survive massive success without falling apart. So when people found out Jeff had been involved with another woman, Lauren Sanchez, a TV personality and pilot, it didn't feel like just another celebrity scandal. It felt like something more personal, like the breaking of a story that so many had quietly admired. It did not take long for the world to react. In the United States, headlines exploded. Talk shows picked it up instantly. News channels that usually focused on politics or business started running segments on Bezos' private life. Late-night hosts cracked jokes about his leaked text messages. On social media, people could not stop talking about it. Some were angry, some were confused, and others were just curious. Some, especially women, voiced their support for MacKenzie. They felt she had stood by Jeff through everything, through the risk, the stress, the years of building, and now she was left to deal with heartbreak in front of the whole world. Outside the United States, the story was just as loud. In the United Kingdom, news outlets focused on the financial angle. How much would the divorce cost? Would MacKenzie become one of the wealthiest women in the world? In places like Brazil, India, and South Africa, the focus was more on the family aspect. Who was MacKenzie? How many kids did they have? What was going to happen to the children? That question came up a lot. What about the kids? Jeff and MacKenzie had always kept their children out of the public eye. They had 4 kids together, including one adopted daughter from China. No one knew their names. No one knew what they looked like. There were no red carpet photos, no interviews, and no social media posts featuring their faces. And when the scandal broke, that silence continued. It's probably one of the only things Jeff and MacKenzie agreed on fully during the storm, to protect the kids. However, people could not help but wonder, how does a family go through something so personal that's now in the public eye and still stay standing? Family friends who spoke to the media said MacKenzie focused right away on keeping things calm. She reportedly stayed brave, holding the family together while the world watched from the outside. The divorce? It was huge. Financially, it was one of the biggest in history. MacKenzie walked away with nearly $38 billion. That number alone made headlines around the globe. Something even bigger came next: what she did with the money. MacKenzie didn't run to a private island or buy luxury yachts. Instead, she started giving her wealth away, quietly, thoughtfully, and over time, she donated billions to charities, educational institutions, racial justice organizations, and women's shelters. People noticed that she was not trying to compete or seek revenge. She was building something new, something with purpose. To many, MacKenzie became the unexpected hero of the story. While Jeff's name was tied to power and money, hers became tied to kindness and giving. As for Jeff, he stepped out of the shadows too. Slowly, he and Lauren Sanchez began attending public events together. They attended galas, dinners, and red carpets. She stood by his side, smiling for the cameras. For some people, it felt too soon. For others, it was just life moving on. No matter where the public opinion landed, one thing never changed. The kids stayed out of it, protected, and safe from the prying eyes of the public. Some parenting experts praised that decision. In a world where children of celebrities are often pushed into the spotlight, Jeff and MacKenzie's choice to shield their children was seen as responsible and loving. No matter how messy things were between them, they maintained strong family boundaries. From time to time, people would ask again, how were the kids doing? Were they angry? Were they sad? But the truth is, we still don't know. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe they deserve to have their story told only if they choose to tell it someday. Over time, the media storm began to quiet down. Other stories came, other scandals, other billionaires. Yet, the Bezos affair remained one of those moments that stayed with people, not because it was the most shocking, but because it felt so real. It reminded people that even the most successful families can fall apart. Even the man who launched rockets into space could not control love, trust, or human emotion. It made people ask themselves, what really matters in the end? Is it a success? Is it building a business empire? Or is it holding on to the people who knew you before you had anything? Jeff and MacKenzie's story showed both sides of a powerful life. One side was about ambition and big dreams. The other was about loss, change, and learning to start over. Jeff has stepped down as CEO of Amazon and now focuses more on space travel and philanthropy. Lauren, who has children of her own, also works in media and runs her businesses. MacKenzie, meanwhile, has kept her distance from the spotlight, helping others and using her money to make a difference. Who to blame for the divorce is one of the most controversial debates. Is it Jeff, who was unfaithful to a wife who stood by him before wealth and fame? Or Lauren, who had an affair with him even after knowing that he was married? The truth is that both are to be held accountable for their mistakes. Even though the whole scandal occurred several years ago, the public will never forget. And that is one disadvantage of fame. Everything you do will never truly be forgotten. The children still stay out of public life. They are likely teenagers or young adults now, living with the quiet reality that their father is one of the most famous men in the world, and their mother is one of the most generous. Their story is still being written, and maybe that's what makes it feel so human. No one gets a perfect ending. Life is complicated. Families can get messy, mistakes are made, and hearts are broken. But people keep going. They grow, change, and try to do better. So, when the world reacted to Jeff Bezos' scandal, it wasn't just about gossip or drama. It was about all of us, watching a powerful man face consequences, watching a quiet woman rise with dignity, and wondering what we would do in their shoes. In the end, what mattered most wasn't the money or the headlines. It was the people who were involved and affected by it. The children and MacKenzie. The public condemns the mistakes of the father who, in their eyes, failed his family. However, they hope that somehow, through it all, the family remained a family, even if it now looks different. Moving on. After the devastating betrayal and the end of her marriage, MacKenzie Scott faced a crossroads. She could let her heartache define her, or she could reshape her life and purpose. That's exactly what she chose to do. When MacKenzie finalized her divorce from Jeff Bezos in 2019, it marked the end of a 25 years of partnership. The settlement gave her roughly $35.6 billion in Amazon stock, a record-breaking split that instantly made her one of the richest women in the world. Remarkably, she surprised many by stating that money wasn't her goal. It was independence and personal peace. Early on, she signed the Giving Pledge, promising to donate most of her wealth during her lifetime. But she didn't just talk about giving. She acted in bold ways that redefined generosity. Within months, MacKenzie began giving away billions, not in flashy, attention-grabbing grants, but quietly and strategically. In July 2020, she revealed that she had donated $1.7 billion to 116 nonprofits, supporting causes such as racial justice, LGBTQ+ rights, democracy, and climate action. Then, by the end of that year, she gave another $4.1 billion to 384 organizations, many serving communities hit hard by the COVID-19 pandemic. By mid-2021, she had donated $2.7 billion to 286 groups, including a major $40 million challenge grant for gender equity in partnership with Melinda French Gates. She also continued giving to historically Black colleges and universities, tribal colleges, and Hispanic serving institutions, pushing over $800 million just in higher education. What stood out wasn't only what she gave, but how she gave it. MacKenzie focused on unrestricted grants, meaning nonprofits could decide how to use the funds, including basics such as salaries and overhead, without strings attached. In March 2024, she launched a unique open call through her team at Yield Giving. Groups with annual budgets between $1 million and $5 million could apply for $1 million grants. She ended up donating $640 million to 361 small nonprofits, a move that more than doubled her initial plan. Early results show real impact. A report from the Center for Effective Philanthropy praised her model, noting how it improved financial health, culture, and scale among the nonprofits she supported. She wasn't just writing checks, she was helping organizations transform. For years, MacKenzie was known primarily as Jeff Bezos' wife, a supportive partner who stood in the background. Her writing, voice, and contributions were overshadowed. Now, her giving rewrote the narrative. By acting quickly, silently, and thoughtfully, she began to define herself on her own terms. She rekindled her passion for writing, publishing thoughtful essays and books that allowed her to reflect on her experiences. Her words revealed a reflective and powerful voice that few had seen before. Away from public headlines, MacKenzie shifted to a quieter life. She focused on her 4 children, deep friendships, and personal growth. Reports described her embracing simplicity and living a more private life, away from the relentless pace she and Jeff once led. She remarried in 2022, tying the knot with high school science teacher Dan Jewett. Though their marriage ended in early 2023, her focus remained centered on family and impact. MacKenzie's journey inspired deeper conversations. Her story prompted people to ask, what does wealth truly accomplish? How do personal values shape giving? And what comes after betrayal? She showed that life after pain doesn't need to be defined by bitterness. Instead, it can become an opportunity to rebuild identity and contribute in meaningful ways. Her giving helped reshape the understanding of big money philanthropy. Meanwhile, Jeff continued to build his empire, which included Amazon, Blue Origin, and the Washington Post. He is planning his wedding to Lauren Sanchez, adding another chapter to his story, but public attention has shifted. Many now viewed their divorce not just as a money story, but as a reminder of the real lives behind billion-dollar brands. After betrayal and loss, MacKenzie did not disappear. She transformed into a different person. She utilized her wealth as a force for good by joining the Giving Pledge campaign, a movement that encourages wealthy individuals to donate the majority of their wealth to charity. She found a voice through her giving. She also stepped out from behind her former spouse's shadow and became recognized as a powerful philanthropist, writer, and thinker. Her future now holds even more promise. With over $20 billion still under her guidance, new projects, and continuous giving, she remains one of the most influential private donors in the world. She never sought fame. She simply wanted to make a lasting impact in the world. Her story offers lessons that betrayal can become a catalyst, wealth can be wielded with empathy, and setbacks can lead to reinvention. You may ask, so where does she go from here? More giving seems likely, more writing, and more building beyond the spotlight. She may never return to life in the headlines, but her influence is here to stay. Quiet, powerful, and deeply human. For the world watching, her journey carries a question. When everything falls apart, when the public image cracks, what do you build next? MacKenzie Scott built something extraordinary, not out of ambition for power, but out of the need to heal and to help. And that is the true definition of strength and bravery. What do you think of how MacKenzie Scott handled the divorce and how she's navigating her new life? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow this channel for more inspiring stories like this. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.